The biggest game changer in mid-game Factorio is when you unlock bots. Suddenly, you can just copy and paste a chunk of your factory, and your flying minions will swoop in to do all the fiddly building work for you. There's a little bit more to them than this though, so let's take a look into bots and logistics, now updated for the 2.0 release. Welcome to Laurence Plays Factorio. There are several components to a robo system. The robots themselves, the roboports that they live in and work between, the chests that they can interact with, and finally blueprints placed by the player. The Roboport network is formed by placing down multiple Roboports within range of each other, allowing you to cover as much of your factory as you want to. When you place additional Roboports, you'll want to make sure that they're close enough to existing ones that they link together. This is shown by this dotted line between them. If you place them too far apart, you'll have created two separate robo networks, and the bots won't fly between them, meaning requests from one can't be fulfilled by parts or robots in the other. This can be useful if you want to separate an outpost network from the rest of the factory, or if you want to limit the distance robots will fly, but most of the time you'll find that you have a core network which is fully linked up. You'll also notice that there are two highlight colours shown when you mouse over a Roboport. The inner orange area shows the logistics coverage of the Roboport. This is the area in which the bots will interact with chests and with the player. The outer green area is the construction coverage. This is the area in which the robots will attempt to build blueprints. When you place Roboports at their maximum connected distance, the orange areas will just touch, but the green areas will overlap. This means that you can place down a grid of Roboports at maximum distance using the construction bots, rather than having to place every single one by hand. This is very useful, but can be quite slow, as the robots won't start trying to place a Roboport until the previous one has been built, putting the next build instruction inside the green area. These coverage areas can also be seen in the map view if you click the Roboport button under the minimap, allowing you to easily check whether your networks are all connected. From here, there is another button to show the bots flying around, helping you work out why you've been waiting so long for a build to complete. As of Factorio 2.0, the Roboports also come with built-in radar, showing the area around them on the map. This radar has a shorter range than the dedicated radar and doesn't scan, but it's big enough to still be quite useful. You can also specify the minimum number of robots which should be available in this Roboport. This allows you to ensure that local tasks get completed quickly without needing to bring robots from the other side of the factory. When you initially unlock the logistics robotics and construction robotics researches, you will get the first two types of chest, plus of course the robots to work with them and the Roboports to put them in. This happens relatively early on using blue science packs, allowing you to start using bots in a relatively simple way. I'll start off by talking about the yellow storage chests. If a robot is carrying something and it doesn't know what else to do with it, it'll dump it in a yellow chest. It will, if it can, prioritise a chest which already contains some of that item, so you do get an element of natural sorting happening, but you can't rely on it. If you want to, you can apply a filter to a yellow chest with this slot at the bottom here. This will tell the bots to only ever put that type of item into the chest, allowing you to force the sorting and even unload these items back into the factory. But if the chest fills up, they'll still put those sort of items in other unfiltered yellow chests and won't tidy them up if the main chest empties again later. Along with the yellow chest, when you unlock basic logistics, you'll also get the red passive provider chest. As the name suggests, this chest makes items available for bots to come and collect if they want to, but won't actively push them out there. So, if you put one of these on the output of your belt building assembler, and the belts are needed somewhere else, the bots will bring them out. As a side note, you can connect inserters to the logistics network, and then tell them to run until there's a certain quantity of an item available. This is a great way to make sure your machines don't overproduce, as it effectively checks all of your logistics chests, rather than just the chest that you're loading or have connected to with a cable. There is a secret 0th type of chest as well, the player. Once you unlock logistics, your inventory will gain this middle section for setting up your personal logistics. Here you can set a request by clicking in any of the squares and then setting a resource type, such as belts or wood. You also get to choose two numbers here. On the left, you can set the minimum amount your inventory should contain, and if you ever fall below this number, bots will bring more out to you. On the right, you can set the maximum, and if you go over this number, then bots will come to take some away. For example, if you're tinkering with the layout of your assemblers, you might want the robots to keep you supplied with the basic parts, belts, assemblers, inserters, and so on, whilst automatically taking away any wood or stone that you pick up as you're clearing space for the buildings. Once these requests are set up, make sure you've got personal logistics turned on at the top of the window, and then whenever you're in an orange Roboport zone, the logistics bots will keep you supplied. Note that construction bots can't bring items to the player. Setting the Trash Unrequested option will tell the bots to take away anything in your inventory which isn't on your request list. I haven't used this option myself, but if you're very sure about everything you want to carry, or if you need to empty your inventory to get in a rocket, I can see how that could be useful. Your tanks and Spidertrons also have this functionality, allowing you to set up logistic requests for them, perhaps requesting additional ammo, or, if you're using them for construction, replenishing their supplies and disposing of rubbish in the same way the player logistics do. In Factorio 2.0, the logistics system has been expanded, adding in groups so you can have multiple different sets of logistics requests. For example, on Norvis, you might want to get rid of any wood or stone which you pick up and call for blue belts. But on Gleba, you might want to hang on to stone and only request yellow belts. On both of them, you always want to have some green, red and blue circuits. To do this, we can set up a section for each planet and a general section and name them appropriately. Now we can program them as required, setting each request. However, we can toggle the section on or off using the tick box. Naming the sections isn't required, however it does make it easier to keep track of them, and also adds them to shared groups, which will allow you to apply them to vehicles or request a chest when you unlock them. You can even request a group multiple times over with the multiplier field. These groups are dynamic, meaning that you can update all of your chests with the same name at once just by changing the settings for one of them. This is both powerful and dangerous if you forget and change a setting anyway. The other thing you can do with bots at this stage is automate building, and this is a complete game changer. You can now build a sub-factory and then copy it as a blueprint by pressing Ctrl-C, or the button on the toolbar, and then dragging over the area you wish to copy. These blueprints can be kept in your inventory as items, added to the blueprint manager, or just kept in the paste buffer. I've made a separate video about blueprints, which you can see by clicking on the card in the top right, but for now, just know that if you press Ctrl-V to paste and then hold Shift and rotate the mouse wheel, you can scroll through recent things you've copied. This is very useful. Blueprints can also be rotated clockwise by pressing R, anti-clockwise with Shift-R, flipped horizontally by pressing H, and vertically by pressing V. You can now place your blueprint simply by clicking in the world. Note that this can be done from the map view as well, which is extremely useful for placing large blueprints accurately. If there's random bits of nature in the way, you can hold Shift and click to tell the bots to remove it, blowing up any cliffs, demolishing trees and rocks, and landfilling water, but not overwriting any existing buildings. If there's parts of the factory in the way, hold Ctrl and Shift before you click to force place the blueprint. This will overwrite any existing buildings with the ones you're replacing, and attempt to route existing belts underground where possible. Once you've placed a blueprint, the construction bots will fly off to grab the required parts, assuming they're inside the logistics network. Construction bots are lazy and will always take parts from the nearest chest with suitable inventory. But what if you're on the move? You can also build a personal Roboport, which fits into the equipment grid of the more advanced armours and in the tank or Spidertron. With this, you become a walking or driving Roboport in the yellow chest, although one that can't link to the main logistics network. This means that if you have some construction bots in your inventory, they will build any nearby blueprints for you using supplies from your inventory. If you're standing by a blueprint and it's not being built, you may have turned your personal Roboport off with Alt F, you may be missing the required supplies, or there may be bots on their way from the main network coming out to build that area already. Later on, you'll discover that there's a Mark II personal Roboport as well, which allows you to run more bots at once, increasing from 10 to 25, and it covers a larger area. If you have multiple personal Roboports in your equipment grid, you'll find that the total number of bots and area covered is calculated by adding all the Roboports' capabilities together. As part of building, you can also tell construction bots to put items in certain places by simply dropping them in when you're in map view. They can load into any inventory slot in a building or vehicle. This is intended for things like setting up locomotives with fuel or putting modules in a building, but can also be used to manually load machines remotely, putting ingredients into the input slots or taking products from the output slots. It feels a little bit cheeky, but it's a very manual process as you can't set it up as a continuous order, so it's only really useful for one-offs or when you're on a different planet and desperately need to fix something. You can do something similar to place preloaded turrets by placing a ghost turret, putting some ghost ammo in the ghost turret, and then copying it as a blueprint. Then when you paste it into the world, the bots will add the ammo. This is fantastically useful for attacking biter nests, especially with the personal Roboport. Blueprints will initially appear in a darker blue and then lighten when a bot has been given the task of placing that specific item. You can see here how this large blueprint gradually changes colour as bots claim bits of the build. Personal logistics and construction bots are all extremely useful and cover most of what I use bots for. However, buried further down the tech tree is an additional research called logistics system. This requires yellow science in vanilla or white science in space age, and so it's a later game tech, but it gets you the other three types of chest. The most useful of these, in my experience, is the blue requester chest. When you open one of these, you can set requests, and then the logistics bots will attempt to fulfill those requests by bringing items from the rest of the network and depositing them in the blue chest. The most obvious use for these is for bringing parts over to an assembler, so you don't need to bring them in by belt, or perhaps for loading a construction or outpost train without, again, needing to bring the resources in by belt. If you're using them with an assembler, you can copy the settings of the assembler with shift right click and then paste them onto the blue chest with shift left click to automatically configure the blue chest with the required ingredients for the assembler's recipe. As with your personal logistics, you can set multiple sections in here and recall existing groups which you created previously. You can also choose whether to tell the logistics bots to automatically take any unwanted materials away as well with trash unrequested, and whether the chest will request from green chests or not. Personally, I'm not a fan of bot-heavy logistics unless it's for very small quantities, but I know that some people do like them. The next chest is the green buffer chest. These can be programmed like a blue chest and will request resources from yellow, red or purple chests, but resources can be taken from them for building, for blue chests, if the blue chest is set to request from buffer chests, or for the player. My main use for these is for intermediate products. For example, if you have your yellow belt assembler output into a green chest, you can configure it to stop running when there's 500 belts available. These belts can then be picked up by bots for construction or passed straight into your red belt assembler to be upgraded to red belts. If you also configure it to request an enormous quantity of yellow belts, then when you upgrade some yellow belts to red, the old belts will be picked up by the construction bots and put into the green chest to be made into better belts, rather than being hidden away in a yellow chest somewhere on the other side of the factory never to be seen again. Another use for them is to get logistics bots to bring material for construction over to a building site, allowing the construction bots to just do the building work. This is slightly more efficient, but requires more thought to set up. The final type of chest is the purple active provider chest. These I don't tend to use. I tend not to have a need for them in my factories. They are similar to red chests in that logistics bots and construction bots can take stuff from them. However, they actively want to get rid of their contents rather than just making it available. So anything you put in one of these chests will be taken away and put into any available yellow chest as soon as possible. This puts the chests into a neat hierarchy order. Logistics bots will first take items from any trash slots and purple chests as a priority, and will dump these items in another available chest if they aren't needed. The next priority is to take required items from yellow chests or green chests, as these are intended as temporary storage. Finally, if the item isn't available anywhere else, the bots will take from a red chest. The bots prioritise for targets as well. The player is the top priority for supplies, followed by any blue chests which are requesting that item, then any green chests which are requesting it. Finally, if there's nowhere else to put an item, it will go into a yellow chest. Most of the time, you don't need to worry about this priority order. If you use chests in the correct places, then the bots will be able to work it all out for you, but it's worth at least knowing that there is an order. All chests can be connected to the circuit network, which allows you to turn their logistics support on and off based on circuit conditions, and also to output their contents. I recommend watching my circuit network basics video for more information on that, but blue and green chests have an additional option. When these chests are connected, you can configure them to set requests, which means that they will request any items on the incoming signal. This is an advanced usage, but it can be very useful. Note that any negative numbers on the circuit network will be ignored by the chest. So this covers how to use bots. There are a few more advanced possibilities, including connecting the circuit network to a Roboport, which allows you to read the contents of that logistics network, the requests on the logistics network, or the robot statistics, but that's not really part of this topic. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I may well do a follow-up video if I get a lot of them. Next time, I'll talk about blueprints and how to do more than just copy and paste a chunk of your factory, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss that one. Finally, if there's anything else you'd like to see me do a tutorial about, let me know and I'll see what I can do. See you next time. Bye bye.